Hello, I'm Alan with RV Adventures. We just got back from a trip and our casita is pretty dirty, as you can see behind me. Haven't had time to clean it yet, but I do need to winterize it because we're expecting temperatures down in the single digits in the next 2 days. We drove home through a snow and we had about 3 inches of snow on the ground when we got here. The sun has since melted it, but I've had the heater running since we got here, and it's now time to winterize the trailer and get it ready to store for the next month or 6 weeks or so before we take off again on our next adventure. So I'm gonna walk through those steps and show you how I do it. So come along and let's check out how to winterize your casita. The first step in winterizing your trailer is to empty your freshwater tank. You can look in the access door here and I see that I have about 6 or 7 gallons left over. So I'm going to drain the tank and get all that water out first. So let me close that up and reach under here to the drain valve. Let me turn this where you can see it a little better. There's a little drain valve there. And I'm going to just let all that water drain out. And when all that water drains out, I'll start the next step. Some of you may notice that this is a different valve than what's provided with the Casita. All I had to do is just unscrew the existing valve. I picked up this valve at Lowe's or Home Depot for a couple of bucks. It's a lot easier to open and close, and it drains really well. So that's a little modification I did. You can do that very easy and take off the little plastic valve that they supply with the trailer. While that water is draining out of that freshwater tank, I'm going to take my 1 1/16 inch socket and remove the anode plug from the hot water heater so the hot water heater all the water can drain out of it. Alright, of course, since we're plugged in, you always want to make sure your switch is set to off up in there, and it is on off. The switch inside the trailer for the gas is off, so the hot water heater has not been on for a couple days. So I'm going to take the little socket wrench, put it right over the anode, and turn that, get it loose. Then I can remove my wrench and then hand turn that anode plug. You can pick up that 1 1/16 inch socket at any hardware store, big box store, Amazon.com. You can go to RVadventures.me website, look at our gear page, and I have all these items on that page. The socket, the anode rod. This anode rod is doing really good. It's catching the mineral deposits like it's supposed to. Still in great shape. I put this one in at the beginning of the summer season, so this is 1 summer season worth of use. It's doing a really good job. So I'll let all that water drain out of there. To help that hot water heater drain quicker, I can open a hot water valve to get a little ventilation on it, and just turn that valve there, and you can see the water's coming out pretty good. Just going to do that for a few minutes. We're going to make sure all that water comes out of the hot water heater. Just a couple of minutes later, the water has slowed down to a little trickle coming out of the drain hole, which is at the bottom of the hot water heater. So I feel confident that most of the water has drained out. I can now go close that hot water valve over here because I want all my valves closed when I start the winterizing process. Okay, the 2 ways to winterize the 2 ways to winterize your trailer that I know about that work equally as well is, 1, to use compressed air to blow out your lines and get all the water out of your lines, your fixtures, your faucets, and everything. The only water that would be left is in your drains, and a little bit in your gray and black water tank, and we'll use some RV antifreeze to address that issue. The other is to use RV antifreeze, such as this, and a good RV marine antifreeze that's good to minus 75 degree temperature. And people take about 3 gallons of that, pour it in their freshwater tank, turn on their 12-volt pump, and open each valve in the trailer, the sink, the bathroom vanity. You run some through your shower head, you flush your toilet, and you run that until this color of liquid flows out of all your valves, and then that way you know all of your lines are full of this antifreeze, and that will keep them from freezing. Then you pour a little bit in your drains. That's one way to do it. I don't do it that way because I don't like having to flush my system after I'm ready to go use it again. I don't want to have to flush the system and clean the lines and go through all of that. Then use the trailer either on city water or on the freshwater tank. And then if I run into another cold situation, use this again, 2 or 3 gallons of it, to run it through the whole system again, and then again be faced with having to flush it out before you can use it again. I like to just empty my lines. If there's no water in your lines, then it can't freeze. So I use the blowout method. A lot of people do that. Casita furnishes you with a little fitting like this that plugs into your city water connection, and it has like a bicycle connection on this end. Set that jug down and you just take it off. It's just like taking it off your tire, and you just hook up your air compressor to that and just blow out some air. People even use pumps, air pumps, like they air up their bicycle tires, and it does the same thing just as fine. I carry with me a little compressor, a little mini compressor that, let me just pull that out so you can see it. A little mini compressor like this plugs in your 12-volt cigarette lighter plug, either in your vehicle or the one that's in your Casita trailer. Nice long cord, and it has a little gauge at top to let you know how much pressure is in there. I don't like to put more than 20 to 30 pounds of pressure in the lines, because I don't want to create another problem by putting too much pressure in the line. So this little pump does just fine for that. It has a little flexible hose that plugs in right here, and then on the other end it has the connector that just screws into this. So Casita furnishes this. The way I do it, I have a compressor in my garage that I use to air up my tires and everything. So I bought this type of fitting. Fits the city water connection, but it has the little snap fitting on it for my air hose to hook up to. So this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to show you that in my process and show you the steps I take to make sure all of my lines are free from water. So let's get started. For those of you that don't know how the Casita is built, the freshwater tank is underneath the back of the bench on the door side of the Casita. You can see the tank there in this compartment. Of course, there's no storage there because the tank takes up all that room. This pipe right here is the vent pipe for when you're filling. It vents the tank. You can see kind of over here to the side, this pipe is actually the water fill pipe, and the two go back to the little access door on the back of the trailer where you fill your water tank. You have some electrical lines running down under there, across there, and then the water line from the tank comes out of the bottom of the tank. You can see it there, and it goes around the back edge of the trailer at the bottom over to the water pump. We'll pick it up on the other side. Okay, on the other side of the trailer, the rear hatch has 2 containers back here. This one is the battery compartment. The battery is inside of here. You can see the electrical wires going into there. This one with the styrofoam is the hot water heater. So if we look at the access hole on the side here, you can see there's the water pump, the 12-volt water pump that turns off and on with your switch in your trailer, that pulls fresh water from your freshwater tank and circulates it into the system. Notice that on this side of the freshwater pump there's a little filter here, and I like to clean mine every year when I winterize. I pull that off and get any debris out of it and clean it. It's there, has a little screen to keep debris from going into the pump, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that here in a little bit. This is the water coming out of the pump. The water is going to come out and go over into this little ingenious design that just about every RV has the same design. A little kind of a E design that goes around. Your cold water is blue, your hot water is red, and so the fresh water is pumped through the pump out here, goes around the little loop there and goes in down here, and it's the blue line at the bottom, and that line goes all the way and feeds all of the cold water faucets in the front of the trailer. It also comes up and around through here into this valve, and this is a bypass valve where you can turn the water off that's going into the hot water heater. So you only do that when you're winterizing and blowing out the lines. You use this valve, and I made a little note on my tank that if it's up and down, the flow is going into the tank. If it is sideways, it's bypassing the tank, and the water just flows and makes a circle through these pipes so that none goes into the tank. So we're going to use that way in the bypass position and into the tank to help blow out the tank a little bit when I hook up the air line. But you can see how the water pipes are here. They're all full of water right now, so we need to get that water out so that they can't possibly freeze. And this is how it's all done. So first thing I'm going to do is set this to the bypass position by just turning it. Just reach back there and just turn the little valve up, and it's now across like this, and so nothing will flow into the tank. So when I hook up my air line to the city water connection, I won't just be blowing air out of the tank. We're going to do that, but I'm going to do that last after I blow out all the rest of the lines. Just as a reference, I'm going to show you how the water lines go to the outside shower connection. You can see the blue and the red. Okay, I'm going to flip this little cover back so you can see all the water lines in there. There's water lines and electric lines back there. This metal fitting right here is the city water connection on the outside of the trailer where all the water comes into the trailer. You can see that the blue, which is for cold, has a couple of connections here. One that goes straight goes up to the toilet flush. These two that go up right here are going up to the sink. It goes up and over to the sink. This one that goes straight down here at the bottom goes to the sink in the bathroom. And then there's a hot water line there too, down here at the bottom. As you can see, there's a red line flowing at the bottom. One goes up to the sink, one goes up here to the outside shower, and then one goes to the sink that's in the bathroom that way. And they're coming along that outside edge of the trailer with the wiring. And see if I can pull that up. You can see how you can kind of see there that the lines are running back here against the back bottom edge of the trailer. And then you can see the daylight from outside where that's going out to the outside shower. So all of those lines need to be emptied, and that's the process we're fixing to do. Now what I've done is kind of show you the plumbing system of the trailer, from the freshwater tank over to the pump to the hot water heater, and then how the lines run underneath the bottom edge out there to the sinks and to the toilet and to the outside shower fittings. We don't have to do anything to those lines. Fortunately, all we got to do after we hook up the air is just open the valves and let the water be pushed out, and that's really easy. I'm going to go outside and I'm going to hook up my air compressor line to the city water connection. All right, we're going to hook up our little fitting here to the city water connection. Just screw that in there. Tighten that up a little bit. That's good. And then I'm going to take my air hose and snap it on. Now, we got air flowing through all the water lines now. And that was set on about 20 pounds, as you saw. So let's go inside and drain those valves and those lines. Okay, I'm always going to suggest going to the furthest valve from your city water inlet. If it is this model Casita, it'll be the one in the bathroom. If it has the kitchen on the door side, that would be the furthest one away. So I'm going to open the cold water valve here first. You can see water is going to flow out. This is all the water that was in there. Now the air is starting to come out. Open that all the way. That's pretty much got all that air out. Now I'm going to open the hot water valve. Let that water drain out. We're going to come back and do this a second time. Okay, the reason I didn't let all of the water drain out, still had a little bit still spewing out, is because all the lines need to be pretty empty before you can let the air flow straight through. So we're going to do the kitchen next. Most of the water came out when I did that other faucet in the bathroom. Close that. And do the hot water here. You can hear the air coming out, no problem. Alright, I'm going to go outside and do the shower valve. But before I do that, I'm going to flush the toilet now. Quickly, you can hear nothing but air coming out of there because there was very little water left in that line. Alright, let's get our shower valves emptied. Pull that hose out. I'm going to put this where you can see the water coming out. Very little water. Let's stretch that out. Stretch that out a little bit. Nothing but air coming out. Good. Alright, let's close that valve. Let's open the hot water valve. A little bit of water coming out. Not much. You can clearly hear the air coming out. Just a little trickle of water there. You know, a little trickle of water won't hurt. A little bit drops left in there. Turn that valve off. Okay, now that I've emptied all 5 valves within the trailer and the shower, the 2 valves on the shower outside, I'm going to open this bypass valve so the air can flush the water that's remaining in this line down here that's going into the tank. So I'm going to push this down and we'll go outside and hear the air coming out of the tank. Now you can see a little bit more water coming out of the tank. You can hear that air. because the air is pushing all that water out of the tank. So we're going to go back in and close that valve. We've flushed that line out now. Alright, we'll close that valve back. Okay, after changing the bypass valve and letting that water go out through the hot water heater, I'm going to check these lines one more time, make sure all the water's out. As you can see, it's just blowing air. A little bit of mist there. Let it blow that last little bit of water out there. Let's go check these in here. Mostly air. Mostly air. Just a little bit of mist, very little water. I'm going to work this valve. Alright. Okay, I'm confident that all of the valves are clear of water and all the lines going to those valves are clear. We're clear all the way to the tank. Now we just have one more step, and that is to pull the line off of the front of the water pump and pull it off the back of the water pump and make sure all the water's out of those lines. So let's do that next. Now, one thing left to do is drain these lines going to the water pump, and then the line that goes from the back of the pump, which is the inlet of the pump, over into the freshwater tank. So I'm going to do that next. To do that, some water spills on the floor when you do that. So I'm going to take a towel and stuff down in here underneath that on both sides, just to catch that water. Okay, on the bottom of the water pump, there's these little blue tabs right here, and they come down about, maybe half an inch at the most, and then the line will just pop out. So I'm going to hold that as I undo it. It's going to come out with some force. One last check of all the lines again. No water running out of there, just air. Just air. The tank's through draining. One last thing you do after all of that draining is you put your anode rod back in there after you inspect it. Slide that back in there. There we go. Put that in there. Finger tighten. And I'm going to snug it up just a little bit with my wrench. There we go. Nice and tight. And that's back in there. Don't have to worry about that. It's ready for the next time we use it. So I'm going to unhook the air hose right here from the freshwater connection. Alright. I'm going to put my shower hose back up. Through with this connection. We take this connection off, close that back up, and I'm going to use my air hose inside the trailer now. Alright, I'm going to snap on a little air nozzle onto my hose. Alright. Okay. I'm going to put this hose connection back in there, push up on the little snap lock. I'm going to come over here and let me turn that just a little bit so you can see better. I'm going to come over here and pull down this snap lock here, and then that releases the water filter. I'll pull down this little snap lock, and pull this off. You can see how these work now. They just come down and then lock in place. So you can see that there's water in this little filter. So it's good to clean it. Push that down and then push it off. Push both of these ends in and then it just comes off. So you have to do that with 2 fingers, 2 hands. There you go. And this is the little screen. I'm going to blow it out. That cleans the little screen. You got the little filter body here. Blow it out. Blow that out. Remove all the water. Take my towel, dry out my water that I've spilt there. And then this end of the pipe, the hose that comes from the freshwater tank, I'm just going to put this in there. And I'm going to blow some air in there to push all of that water. You can hear it draining. I'm pushing all the water back into the freshwater tank. There we go. One more time. Okay. Now, reach in there. No water in there. It's all free of water. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to release that, open this up a little bit, put the towel up in front of this, and I'm going to I'm going to turn on my 12-volt switch to the pump, so that if there's any water in the pump chamber, it'll push it out this way. Watch and see. That's about as long as you want to run the pump without any water in it, but that makes sure all of the water is out of the pump. I can reattach those lines, put my filter back in place, and it's all dry. And if it's dry, there's no water to freeze. So I'm going to take my filter and put it back in here and push and snap that in place. You can see how it kind of snaps over. There we go, and that snaps in place. That's done. The flow is this way, so I'll put that back on there. Lock it in place. There we go. I'll take the hose from the fresh water, push it in there, lock it in place. Now all that's locked in place. Take this hose, put back in there, push it in place, push up, snap, and lock. Now, take my towel out, and the pump is all drained. The last thing I'm going to do so that it's ready to roll, when I'm ready to roll next, is put the bypass valve back into the position for the water to flow into the hot water tank. It's down. Next time I hook up to city water at the next RV campsite, it'll fill the tank with water. I'll allow 10 or 15 minutes for that to happen before I turn on my electricity. Make sure that the water has filled up, and to make sure of that, I will open a hot water valve, get the air out of the lines, let the water flow, and once the water's flowing good out of both of my faucets, I will turn on the hot water tank so that there's no danger of the element coming on without any water in the tank. All right, that concludes blowing out the lines. There's one last step you have to take to make sure that you're ready for winter and that nothing will freeze. In your drains, I've got the RV antifreeze I showed you earlier, and in the drains are going to have some water in them. So I'm going to pour some in each of my drains, just about a cup or so. All right. Pour some in there, about a cup. Let it drain down in there. It'll get in the P-trap. I'm going to pour some in my shower drain. That'll get in my shower drain. I'm going to pour some in my toilet. A little bit more in there. I'm going to let that flush down. And put a little bit more back in there, like that. And that can just sit there like that, no problem. One very last thing you do at the very end of this is, well, get the sun out of the camera so you can see, is I raise the trailer up about, I'll crank this crank up, I'm going to raise the trailer up about an extra 6 or 8 inches in the front so that I can go to the back and look and make sure all the water is dripping out of that freshwater tank drain. We'll let that drip for 30 minutes or so while I put everything back together, and that just makes sure that the turn this where you can see, that just makes sure that that drain is tilted, the trailer is tilted like this all the way to the back of the drain, so that I can make sure all that water runs out of that freshwater tank and out of that drain valve, and there's no water left in that freshwater tank. So that's the last little step, and we're done. All right, that concludes the winterizing of this trailer. That's all I need to do to make sure that my plumbing system is drained of all water. Again, if there's no water in the lines, it can't freeze. And putting the RV antifreeze in the drains will keep those P-traps and the other drain. The shower has a horizontal trap, and it keeps it from any water in it from freezing. The little bit of water that went down the drain went into the holding tanks, and that puts a little bit of antifreeze in the holding tank, so that where the water is resting against the valves that you pull to drain your holding tanks, that water won't freeze if any water is sitting there next to that valve. So I feel confident that we're ready for those predicted temperatures of 7 degrees on Sunday morning. It's now Friday morning, and I'm going to wrap up this video. I hope it helped you a lot to see how I do this. This is the way I do it. I'm by no means an expert, but I've went through this procedure about 5 times now with this trailer, and I've never had any problem with water freezing anywhere in the trailer. Never had any damage from water freezing. You may find that this is not suited for you, and that's fine. You may just want to pour 3 or 4 of those jugs in your freshwater tank and then run that colored liquid through all of your lines and be done with it that way. But I like emptying the lines out. That's my personal preference. You find what works for you and get out there and have yourself an RV adventure. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.